بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. We will begin inshallah ta'ala with al-mustawa al-awwal from the mutun talib al-ilm level 1, which consists of Nawaqid-ul-Islam, القواعد الأربع، ثلاثة الأصول، والأربعين النووية. So these 4 books inshallah we will cover, and then we will go back and read the brief explanation of the compiler of the Mutun Talib al-Ilm, which is Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Qasim. And then when we finish his explanation, inshallah ta'ala, we will go and read the recommended explanation that he put in the front of his Mutun Talib al-Ilm, the books that he recommends to be read as the explanation of these matan, of these mutun. So that's our plan. We're going to read the matan once, then read the shar of each matan with Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Qasim, and then read the shar of the recommended shar. The recommended shar for Nawaqid-ul-Islam is by Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan. Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan has 2 printed explanations of Nawaqid-ul-Islam. One is a brief one, around 49 pages, and the other one is around 200 pages. The one that we're going to read is around 49 pages. We're going to read the shorter one. And then Qawaid al-Arba is Salih al-Fawzan as well. And then Thalathatul Usul is the grandfather of Sheikh Abdul Muhsin, which is Abdurrahman al-Qasim, and it is translated into English a long time ago. And then we're going to read, inshallah, Jami al-Ulum al-Hikam, which is the explanation of the 40 hadith, as well as the editions of Ibn Rajab by Ibn Rajab himself. So if Allah blesses us, that's what we're going to do. Depending on where we get before the month of Ramadan, then in the month of Ramadan, I spoke with a brother who graduated from the Arabic program of Muhammad ibn Saud, and Allah did not decree for him to continue studying because his mother told him to stop studying because of just being away from him and his kids. So he lives in America now, and he is going to, bi'idhnillah, go over Juz Amma with us in the month of Ramadan. He is going to be the one teaching the tafsir of Juz Amma, since Muhammad ibn Saud has a program teaching Juz Amma with Arab, through the Arabic language aspect of it. So he will go over that with us, inshallah ta'ala. So we'll begin here with this book, Nawaqid-ul-Islam. I have a number of chains for it through a number of different mashayikh. But I'm just going to read to you, and each sheikh has a number of chains as well. But I'm just going to read to you for now the first chain of the first sheikh that I took it from. And then at the end, inshallah ta'ala, I will put together all the different chains that I have, and their other chains will be included in it. And I narrate this book, Nawaqid-ul-Islam, the Shaykh al-Islam, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, from Shaykh Muhammad Jamil al-Nuristani, who narrates from his Shaykh al-Muhaqqiq Subhi ibn Jasim al-Samarai, who narrates from Shaykh Abdul Karim al-Sa'iqah, from Sheikh Khairuddin Nu'man al-Alusi, from Sheikh al-Allama Ahmed ibn Ibrahim ibn Isa, who is the one who explained An-Nunniya of Ibn Qayyim, and who narrates from Sheikh Abdurrahman ibn Hassan al-Sheikh, the grandson of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who wrote the book Fathul Majid, from his uncle Abdullah, the son of Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, from his father Imam al-Mujaddid Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah. So this is the chain that we narrate this book on, and as we said, we will give you the remaining chains. This book, Nawaqid-ul-Islam, and I'm not meaning to explain it, but since we are reading it, and it has some tools in here that could be used to harm oneself as well as others, then I'm going to give a brief explanation, even though I'm not explaining the book. It will be explained later on, inshallah ta'ala. It is in itself written in the text, but if someone doesn't explain it, then they may not pick it up. As well as it will be in the other explanations of Abdurrahman al-Qasim and Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, as well as any other explanation that you read. But I just want to make a quick point. These Nawaqid-ul-Islam is something that is mandatory for a person to study. Nawaqid-ul-Islam, the nullifiers of Islam, is something that everyone should know to some degree, in a general sense. Why? Because if you don't know what they are, then you may fall into them. And many people, I remember a long time ago asking a brother who used to advise our masjid about teaching this book in the masjid, and he said no, because whoever teaches this book either ends up being with the people, he either ends up being a takfiri, someone who makes people and calls Muslims kuffar, or he ends up being a murji, someone who says nothing takes someone out of Islam. So this could be a dangerous book to study. I don't agree with him. I didn't teach the book in our masjid back then, but now that I've studied it with a number of mashayikh, some with the isnad and some without, I don't feel the same way about it if it's taught properly. Although I understand, and I probably was not capable of teaching it properly back then, that this book in the wrong hands could definitely be dangerous. Although this topic is discussed in all the major books of fiqh. All the major books of fiqh, they begin talking about tahara and salah and siyam and zakat and hajj like this. And then they move on to the mu'amalat. They move on to the fiqh subjects of dealing with one another. Marriage, divorce, engagement period, crimes and stealing and all that. And at the end, they'll have a book called Kitabul Ridda, or Babul Ridda, or Babul Iltidad, or something like this, which has to do with turning away from Islam. Which has to do with turning away from Islam. So the subject and the crime of turning away from Islam is in all the fiqh books. But if you notice what I said, it's in all the fiqh books, but at the end of them. It's one of the last chapters of these fiqh books. It's in Bulugh al-Maram, it's in Umdatul Ahkam, it's in other books. But it's at the end of these books. Which means, first you need to study your religion, and then you need to know about what to do when a person becomes a kafir. However, there's no problem with studying something like this in the beginning for those of us who have a little bit better, somewhat understanding of Islam. And as long as we realize that these are a tool we use against ourselves and not something that we go pointing at everyone else and pulling the trigger. When we find ourselves slipping, then we shoot ourselves with the gun and we don't shoot other people with it. We don't go around telling people, that's a naqid, that's a naqid, that's a naqid, and you're kicking people off. No, you point yourself, you look in the mirror, and you tell yourself, you nullified your Islam today. You said this, you did that. What's wrong with you? If we understand that, then it's safe to study the book, and it's not meant to be used on others, right? Until you've done all these other things, until you mastered tahara. How many of us think we mastered tahara? Wudu and ghusl. I can show you a 10-volume, 500 plus pages per volume, encyclopedia on tahara. So, tahara, salat, zakat, siyam, hajj, umrah, all of that. Then marriage, the engagement period, the gift, the mahar, what goes on in the shoes, how do you deal with her when she is misbehaving, the talaq, the iddah, the nafaqah ba'd al-iddah, all of these things before we get to this chapter. Until then, just use it to benefit yourself and look in the mirror, and don't try to cast it off onto anyone else, inshallah. Make sure you're alone in the room so you're not looking at someone else in the mirror and looking at them saying it, inshallah. So this book, Nawaqid-ul-Islam, as we all know, is the Nullifiers of Islam. The singular of Nawaqid is Naqid. Naqid. Right? From Naqada yanqudu. That's the verb. Naqada yanqudu. Right? Naqid. Right? Meaning to nullify, to destroy, to annihilate, like this. To cancel out. Al-Islam. To cancel out Al-Islam. To nullify Islam. To make void Al-Islam. Right? Islam comes from Aslama. Aslama yuslimu. Aslama yuslimu. And Islam is a masdar. When we say Islam is a masdar, we mean a verbal noun. Like the word running. Running is a verb. When I say I like running, running here is a noun. Like if I would just replace it with a simple noun, not a verbal one, like I like cars. We know cars here is a noun. It has nothing to do with a verb. But when I say I like running, means I like the action of running, which means the masdar is a verbal noun, meaning it has some action in it. Right? It has some action in it, even though it's a noun. So when we understand that, we understand all the speech that iman, yazid, wa yanqus, it increases and decreases, because your action increases and decreases. Right? Islam and Iman are equal, and Iman is a masdar on the same root. Amana yu'minu. It's on the same wazn, rather, the same scale. So when we understand this, then we understand Islam and Iman and Ihsan also on the same scale. Ahsana tuhsinu. All of these are masdars that increase and decrease. When we have this increase and decrease, this isn't just in order to fight the Murji'ah and to fight the Khawarij who contradict us in this. Rather, this is built into the Arabic language. This increase and decrease is built into the Arabic language. I will say to you in my brief studies that I have never come across a concept in Islam that was made in order to combat the deviant groups on the outside. So we came up with this principle because the people say one thing and that's wrong, and people say one thing so that reflects our aqidah. Simply from that, no. Rather, it's built into the language of the Arabic language, and the people during the Prophet's time understood it, even if they didn't say, for example, Iman increases and decreases. Even if they didn't say Islam is a masdar. Even if they didn't say that the Quran is not created. It's language and into the aqidah of Islam, and is not something that was made up to combat the deviants. So we have this concept here, Nawaqid-ul-Islam, the nullifiers of Islam. It's an idafa. mudaf, mudaf ilay. That's why Islam is majroor. This book is li Imam al-Da'wa. Imam al-Da'wa. Imam, we all know this, right? Imam al-Da'wa. The Imam of the Da'wa. And Imam is majroor after li. The harful jar or the preposition li. Li Imam al-Da'wa. And this is mudaf, mudaf. If I was to just write Imam al-Da'wa with no li in front of it, it would be Imam Da'wati. Right? The Imam of the Da'wa. A Sheikh. Sheikh is majroor here because of li. If I was to take out Imam of the Da'wa, I could just write li Sheikh. Li Sheikh. Right? Or it would be another lamb there. Li Sheikh. I could write Li Sheikh and it'd be a kasra here because of the li. So this is just a badal, a replacement for Imam al-Da'wa. Muhammad is majroor because of the li. I could just write li Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Ibn is majroor because of the li. I could just write li ibni Abdul Wahhab. Right? So all of these could be taken out. Sheikh could be taken out. Muhammad could be taken out. And I could just write li ibni Abdul Wahhab. Like this. Now, we get to Abdul Wahhab. Abdul Wahhab is majroor because it is the mudaf ilay to Ibn. Ibn Abdul Wahhab because he's the son of Abdul Wahhab. So this is mudaf, mudaf ilay. Otherwise I could say Ibnu Abdul Wahhab. Right? And Wahhabi is majroor because of mudaf ilay to Abd. Like Abdullahi. Then the Ibn here, the same thing. Idafa. Right? Sulaiman. Sulaiman should be, if we left it by itself, it would be Sulaimanu. Sulaimanu, and it is a word which is mamnu min as-sarf. Does not take tanween. It's a foreign name. Sulaiman is not an Arabic name. Right? It's mamnu min as-sarf. It does not take tanween nor kasra. So even though it should be, or even though it is majroor, and it seems like it would take a kasra, it actually takes a fatha for it being majroor. So it's majroor here with a fatha. And it's mudaf ilay to Ibn. A Tamimi, that's the tribe he was from. And this has nothing to do. Tamimi, this kasra here is only because of the ya. Tamimi, meaning that's the tribe he is from. Like if you say Al-Amriki, or Al-Memphisi, or Al-Benvari, or Malandi, whatever. Right? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. So this is a brief reason of why all our kasras are there. When we read the title and the Sheikh's name, Nawaqid-ul-Islam, li Imam al-Da'wati, al-Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab ibn Sulaiman al-Tamimi, we understand that, am I right?
No.
And we understand why the kasras and all that is there, what could be replaced and all that, correct?
No.
Pretty much.
Okay. Why is this one there, Abdullah?
Because that's the mudaf.
No, because of the li. Li Imam. it's after the harf jar. So it's one of those prepositions that the word comes after it, makes it majroor. Right? As well as this one, and this one. All of those are because of the li. I can say li imam ad-dawa, I can say li sheikh, I can say li Muhammad, I can say li ibni Abdul Wahab. Right? So li,
imam.
huh?
Li imam.
Imam ad-dawa, that's a phrase. That's a phrase that's together. Those two words are together. I could say lil imam, but here it's a phrase. Li imam ad-dawa. The imam of the dawa.
Ain't that mudaf lay?
Yeah, but the mudaf ilayh takes a kasra.
Okay.
Not the mudaf. The mudaf, if I was to write it by itself without anything in front of it, I just put the phrase imam ad-dawa.
Oh, okay.
It would say imamu dawati.
I got it now, yeah.
But because of the li,
Yeah.
it becomes li imam ad-dawa, li sheikhi, li muhammadi, li ibni.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
No.
Now, this one, the rest of these, let me see something here, 1 second. This one here, this one here, this one here, this one here, this fatha here, they're all majroor because of mudaf ilayh. The red ones are majroor because of mudaf ilayh. This is mudaf ilayh to ad-dawa, or imam. This is mudaf ilayh to ibn. This is mudaf ilayh to abd. This is mudaf ilayh to wahab. And this is mudaf ilayh to ibn. This is Muhammad, the son of Abdul, Muhammad, the son of, the slave of, Wahab, the son of Sulaiman. So it's a bunch of idafas there. You understand?
No.
Idafa. The blue ones are are majroor because of the li. The red ones are majroor because of idafa. Follow?
No.
No. This next page, you don't need to read it. It's just the manuscripts that Sheikh Abdul Muhsin Al-Qasim went through, where they're at, what their numbers are and all that to determine the method that he was going to present to the people. And depending on if you have the actual little books, Matun Talib al-Ilm, depending on which printing you have, it will determine what text you have, because he's changed in between. He's changed his mind or found more information or, you know, did more research, whatever he did. They differ a little bit in their text. Sometimes there'll be two ayat as two ayat used as evidence in the first naqid, and sometimes there's just one, and there's different phrases in different manuscripts. Right? But the book is basically the same. He narrated it to more than one person. He wrote it to more than one person. Each time he said it just a little bit differently. And every time Abdul Muhsin Al-Qasim prints his book, he changes up a little bit here and there. I don't know why, but he always changes something up, adding or taking away. So we say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'lam. أن من أعظم نواقض الإسلام عشرة. Some manuscripts just say اعلم أن نواقض الإسلام عشرة نواقض. But here, this one it says اعلم أن من أعظم نواقض الإسلام عشرة. اعلم from علم يعلم. Alima, ya'lamu. So if we have ya'lamu, then to a person would be ta'lamu. You know, ta'lamu. We're going to turn that into a command by dropping our ta. We're going to say, put a sukoon in place of our dhamma. But we can't start with a sukoon here on this ayn, so we have to put a alif. I'lam. But I said i'lam, not a'lam, because the rule is, whatever this third letter is, we got the hamza, ayn, the lam. Whatever's on this lam here, this third letter, if it's a fatha or a kasra, then we're going to put a kasra on our alif. If it's a dhamma, then we're going to put a dhamma on our alif. You understand? So, i'lam. I'lam. If we have tajlisu. Tajlisu. We do the same thing. We drop our ta. We drop our ta. We put a sukoon at the end. We are our alif. We got a kasra here. Here we have a fatha. We put a kasra. Here we have a kasra. We put a kasra. Ijlis. Right? We have the word taktubu. Taktubu. We drop our ta. We put a sukoon where the dhamma was. We put a alif there because we can't start with a sukoon on the kaf. We say uktub. We put a dhamma there because it's a dhamma. So if it's a dhamma on this third letter, we put a dhamma. If it's a kasra or a fatha, then we put a kasra. So we say i'lam. No.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I think the sister wanted you to repeat. I think you repeated it, but I don't know if she got to understand it or not.
Did I repeat it where you understood it? Yeah, if you could help me out like that, Abdullah, because when I'm writing, I don't necessarily look over there.
Yeah.
Okay. We have 3 verbs. All of them are different. We have ta'lamu, tajlisu, and taktubu. Okay? All of them in the third position, they have a different vowel. Ta'lamu has a fatha, tajlisu has a kasra, taktubu has a dhamma. When we come down, we're going to drop our ta. Right? Okay, we're going to put all our vowels except our dhamma is going to be a sukoon. Now, I'm going to add my alif. But I don't write anything on my alif. My alif is not to be written on. It's called hamzatul wasl. If there's something in front of it, I just skip over it in pronunciation. Right? But here, I'm starting out. I'lam. How do I know to put a kasra there? Because if it's a fatha or a kasra on my third letter, I'm going to pronounce it with a kasra. I'm not going to say a'lam. No. If it's a fatha or a kasra, I'm going to put a kasra. If it is a dhamma, I'm going to put a dhamma. Not that I'm going to put it, but I'm going to pronounce it. So if it's a kasra or a fatha on that third letter, 1, 2, 3, then I'm going to put a kasra. If it's a dhamma, I'm going to put a dhamma. So I'm going to tell someone, ijlis, i'lam, uktub. Clear now? Okay. اعلم, no. He's telling us no. He's commanding us to know. Anna means that. Anna means that. An and anna, an and anna are similar, except an comes before a noun or a preposition or something, and anna with the sukoon on it comes before a noun or a preposition, whereas an usually comes before or between two verbs. But they both mean that. Know that min a'zam. Min is from. Here it's from. A'zam comes from azim. A'zam is the ismu tafdil, or the superlative form. Like we say, great. That's azim. And then a'zam is greater or greatest. There's no difference between greater and greatest except in the context in Arabic. There is no ER and EST like we have in English, obvious difference. Rather, in Arabic, they're both, the same. Depending on the context, you'll know to say greater or greatest. Here means greatest. Min a'zami, from the greatest. Nawaqid. Min a'zami. A'zami is majroor after min. Nawaqid is majroor after a'zam because it's mudaf ilayh. We say azim and nawaqid, the greatest of nawaqid. If you have this word of or apostrophe s, then it's an idafa construction. So if you could say Allah's messenger or messenger of Allah, you could say the greatest of nawaqid or the nawaqid's greatest, or however, right? Then it's an idafa. So we say min a'zami nawaqid, from the greatest of the nullifiers Islam, from the greatest of the nullifiers of Islam, ashara, 10. So here we see in this manuscript, the book that we studied previously, or the manuscript that we studied previously, it just said, I'lam anna Nawaqid-ul-Islam ashara, and it didn't have this. It said, I'lam anna Nawaqid-ul-Islam, and it had a fatha there because of anna. Anna Nawaqid-ul-Islami ashratu nawaqid. It had ashratu nawaqid because it was the khabar about it, right? Here, this one is clarifying. We like this one here maybe a little better because this manuscript shows us that these are not the only 10 nullifiers. And even though at the end of the book he clarifies that, here in the beginning he clarifies it. From the greatest of the Nawaqid-ul-Islam or ashara. I'lam anna min a'zam min Nawaqid-ul-Islam ashara. Are there any questions about that? Okay. We'll read after we finish the first naqid, inshallah. Al-awwal. Al-awwal. This is something that people have to learn. They have to learn cardinal numbers. Maybe we learn wahid, ithnain, thalatha, arba, khamsa, sitta, sab'a. Maybe we learn how to count 1 to 10 in Arabic. Those are called primordial numbers or something like that. But cardinal numbers, when we talk about first, second, third, there's a difference, right? 1, 2, 3, first, second, third, there's a difference. These are called, in English, cardinal numbers, right? I don't know what they're called in Arabic, right? But we'll learn them here, at least 1 through 10. Al-awwal is number 1. Al-awwal, right? Whereas 1 is wahid, right? Wahid. Awwal wal-wahid. So al-awwal is number one, the first. Shirk. Shirk, meaning to associate partners. To have a partner. Shirk in the religion of Islam is bad. But shirk in the dunya, we cannot do without it. Right now, we are doing shirk in this class, meaning we are cooperating and being partners with one another in learning and teaching. I couldn't have this class without you, and you couldn't have this class without me. We are partners, right? They say a person takes a partner for one of three reasons. Either for money, for time, or ability. So for instance, someone wants to open a business. They have the money and they have the time to do it, but they don't know how. So they got to call someone in to teach them. Or they have the time and they have the ability, but they don't have the money to start it up. Or they have the money and the ability, but they don't have the time. This is the dunya. None of us are able to do everything by ourselves. So this word shirk needs to be clarified by fi ibadatillahi ta'ala. Because Allah is not in need of our wealth. He's not controlled by time, and He is ala kulli shay'in qadir. So He doesn't need any partner. So a shirk fi ibadatillah, this is bad. A shirk in the dunya is not bad. In fact, a company, if you were to open up a company, or you were to say, I work for a new company in Kuwait, you say, I work for a new sharika. A new sharika. A new cooperation between a corporation, which means cooperation or business like this. A new sharika. If you have a business partner, me and Abdullah go into trucking. Me and Abdullah go into trucking. Abdullah is my sharik. When we say la sharika la, he has no partner, Abdullah would be my sharik in that business. For Allah, having a sharik, for Allah, shirk, this is mamnu, it's haram. It's impossible because He is in control of everything. He owns everything. Like this. For us, shirk is not something we can avoid in the dunya. So we understand the word shirk. A shirk fi ibadat lahi ta'ala. A shirk in the ibadah of Allah, the Most High. Fi is in here. Ibadah. We all know that word, ibadah. Ibadah is majroor here after fi. And Allah is majroor, lafzul jalal is majroor because it is mudaf ilayh. Ibadatillah, the worship of Allah. Shirk in Allah's worship, shirk in the worship of Allah. Ibadatillahi. Ibadah is the singular of ibadat, meaning acts of worship. Ibadah could be one act of worship. Al-ibadah is worship in general, right? In general, ibadah, worship. Ibadah, one act of ibadah could be one act of worship. Ibadat could be the different types or many types of ibadah. Ashirk fi ibadatillahi ta'ala. The Most High, Allah the Most High, from Allah, right? Shirk fi ibadatillahi ta'ala. This is the first nullifier. Shirk fi ibadatillahi ta'ala, and it's different from the second one, which we will see inshallah ta'ala. With dalil, ad-dalil, here is the evidence, al-evidence, the evidence or the proof. From dalla yadillu. Dalla yadullu. So dalla yadullu. Dalla yadullu. To guide somewhere. Because evidence guides you to the truth. It shows you to the right way. Right? وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى is his statement, the Most High. Qawl is statement from qala yaqulu. And the plural of qawl is aqwal. Right? Qawl is statement. Aqwal is statements. Right? You might say qawl Imam Malik or aqwal as-salaf, like this. Qawluhu ta'ala, his statement, the Most High, Inna Allaha la yaghfiru an yushraka bih wa yaghfiru ma duna dhalika liman yasha. Inna means verily. It's from the sisters of Anna, or Anna is from the sisters of Inna, whichever way. The word after it becomes, the noun after it becomes mansub. Inna Allaha, verily Allah. La yaghfiru. Yaghfiru from ghafara yaghfiru. Ghafara yaghfiru. Same as we see there. Ghafara yaghfiru, to forgive. Here, la yaghfiru. Allah doesn't forgive. And yushraka bih. And we said, and we see it coming between two verbs here. And comes before a noun or before a phrase like we have there. Whereas and comes between or between two verbs or before a verb. Usually between two verbs. La yaghfiru an. Allah does not forgive that. Yushraka bi. Yushraka bi. That partners be set up with him. This verb sharika or shirk. Sharika yashraku. Let me get a clean area here. Sharika yashraku. Yashraku. That's to share or participate. Here, yushrak is passive. Yushrak is passive. Not that he is participating or he is making a partner, but that a partner is made bihi, with him. Right? When we say he hit or he was hit, this is the difference. Right? In passive voice and active voice. Active voice, he's the one who did it. In Arabic, when we say active, we use the word ma'loom. When we say this is active. When we say passive, we use the word majhul. Ma'loom from ilm, right? Meaning to be known. And majhul from jahl, meaning to be unknown. We don't know him. We're ignorant. We have no knowledge. Jahiliyyah is known as a day of ignorance because they didn't have knowledge. They were ignorant of something. They did not know it. So what do we mean by known and unknown? In the active verb, we know the doer, but not necessarily who it's done to. Whereas in passive, we know who it's done to, but not who did it. So here, la yaghfiru an yushraka bi. Allah does not forgive that partners be associated with him. Not that he is associating partners, but that partners are associated bihi, with him. وَيَغْفِرُ, and he forgives. Ma duna. Ma here means what? There are a lot of different ma'as. Not ma of negation, the ma of connecting words together, the ma of what? Here's the ma of what? Ma yaghfiru ma duna. Duna means less. Right? Duna means less. We say, trying to think. Anyway, it means less. I can't think of the phrase I'm thinking of right now that we say in our salat. Duna means less. Right? Connected to the word dunya. To be lowly. Dunya. To be low. To be less. Right? To be less. Thank you. So duna wa yaghfiru ma duna. He forgives what is less. Dhalika, that. Liman, for whoever. Li is for or to. Man is whoever or who. Yasha. Yasha from sha'a. Yasha. So we know this when we say insha'Allah. Whatever Allah willed, right? MashaAllah. The plural of that, or the present tense of that is yasha. Insha'Allah. MashaAllah. That's past tense. Whatever Allah willed. But we say if Allah wills, we say that because we're saying if Allah wills, we're talking about the future, but it's really if Allah willed, meaning 50,000 years before he wrote creation, when he decreed everything. You understand? So I'll see you tomorrow if Allah decreed it 50,000 years before creation. That's why it's used as the past tense. Liman yasha. Allah forgives other than that or less than that to whom he wills. Duna can have the same meaning of ghayr, other. He forgives other than that or less than that to whom he wills. وَمِنْهُ, and from it, going back to a shirk. Going back to a shirk, and from it, وَمِنْ a shirk. If we were to write it back, we say وَمِنْ a shirk. Right? فِي إِبَادَةِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. الذبح. الذبح from ذبح يذبح, meaning to slaughter. To slaughter. A word that we're all familiar with, although we might not remember or hear it properly. Zabiha. Is it zabiha meat? No, is it zabiha? The with a va, with a thou, not a zay. The Pakistani Indians say zabiha, but for us it's dhabiha. Right? Minhu al-dhabh, slaughtering, li ghayrillah, for other than Allah. Slaughtering for other than Allah. Second here, let me add some minutes. الذبح لغير الله. غير meaning other than. Like we say, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وتبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك. غيرك, other than you. There's no God other than you. Like we say, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Other than those who have earned your anger, or those who went astray. غير لغير الله. Slaughtering for other than Allah. Li is for or to, like we say. Li is for or to. Ghayr is other than. It's like the word kullu. Anytime it appears, the word after it is going to be majroor. Off ilay. Li ghayrillah. Li ghayrillah. So Allah is lafdul jalal majroor here. after this, right? After there. Slaughtering for other than Allah. Kaman, like the one. Ka is like. Ka is like. It's similar to the word mithl. Ka or mithl. Mithlu man or kaman. Mithlu man or kaman. Like the one yazbahu, who slaughters lil jinn, for the jinn, or lil qabr, or for the grave. But we don't necessarily mean for the grave itself. We mean for the one in the grave, right? Lil qabr, right? In the grave, right? For the grave. But we mean the one in the grave, slaughtering for the saint or the wali or the sheikh or whoever they're making shirk with, right? We don't necessarily mean the grave itself, the dirt and the hole and the rock or whatever. We mean the one in the grave. Kaman yadhbahu lil jinn or lil qabr. Are there any questions about this? First, Nawaqid?
Nah.
Give the sisters a second chance to respond. Okay, let's see if I have time. You guys, if the time is basically up, but if you guys want to go another 10-15 minutes, we can finish the second one. It's up to you.
I'm cool. I'm all right with that.
Okay. Huh?
I'm good.
الناقد الثاني. الناقد الثاني. The second nullifier. من جعل بينه وبين الله وسائط يدعوهم ويسألهم الشفاعة ويتوكل عليهم كفر إجماعا. Okay, من جعل, whoever makes. جعل يجعل, to make. يجعل. يجعل, to make. من جعل, whoever makes. بينه وبين الله. بينه, بين means between. بين is between. Between him and between Allah. Now, this word baina, if I use a pronoun like we have here, bainahu, then I need to repeat my baina. But if I was to say baina, we have a contract, baina Abdullah wa Mustafa. Right? I don't have to put baina because I use two proper names. I can, but I don't have to. But if I use a pronoun, then I have to put baina again. Even though in English we're only going to say between him and Allah. We're not going to say between him and between Allah. I said that for reading purposes here. But we're going to say between him and Allah. But I have to repeat my baina because of the who. But if I was to say baina Muhammad wa Allah, or baina Allah wa Muhammad, no problem, right? No problem, inshallah. So baina hu wa baina Allah. He makes between him and Allah wasa'it, which is the plural of wasita. Wasita means an intercessor, someone who goes in between. If you ever lived in a Muslim country, you know you need wasita. Am I right, Yassine?
Say that one more time.
You need wasita when you live in the Muslim countries, right?
What's wasita? Intercession?
Wasita, you have to have someone. You want a driver's license, you need someone to help you. You want to get something done, you gotta know somebody who knows somebody to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you need wasita. You gotta have a wasita. If you don't have wasita, you're gonna be stuck, right? So wasita, wasa'it. A place between him and Allah, wasa'it. Intercessors, people who they put something between them and Allah. Yad'uhum, from da'wah. Da'a, yad'u. Yad'uhum, they call on them. They make da'wah to them. They supplicate to them. Wa yas'aluhum, and they ask them. From sa'ala yas'alu, and they ask them. This dhamma there is for reading purposes. Otherwise, it should be a sukoon. But because we have a sukoon on the meme and a sukoon on this first sheen, we have two sheens. One has a fatah, right, and one has a sukoon. We change that and just put a shadda there. But because we have two sukoons, we put this dhamma there for reading purposes, to make it smooth, right? Yas'aluhum ash-shafa'ah. They ask them for intercession. وَيَتَوَكَّلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ, and they put their trust in them. From tawakkala yatawakkalu, right? Tawakkul. You know that word, tawakkul. Tawakkul, to have trust and entrust your affairs. وَتَوَكَّلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ, and they put their trust in them. Kafara ijma'a. Kafara, he disbelieved. Ijma'an, here is a hal, meaning according to the ijma', according to all the scholars of Islam, he has kafara. Who? Man ja'ala baynahu wa bayna Allahi wasa'id. Whoever placed between him and Allah intercessors. Yad'uhum, they call on them. Wa yas'aluhum ash-shafa'ah, and they ask them for intercession. Wa yatawakkalu alayhim, and they entrust their affairs to them. Kafara ijma'a. They have disbelieved according to consensus. Now, before we give it to the brothers to read, the difference between these two things, الناقد الأول والناقد الثاني. This naqid al-awwal is the shirk of the kuffar or the mushrikeen during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They ask Allah for intercessors. They ask others for intercession with Allah. They ask others to intercede or to grant or to intercede for them, or they make dua to them to ask Allah to help them. They entrust their affairs to them to ask Allah like this. Whereas this first naqid is that they worship the jinn or the qabr or whatever else itself. The second one, they worship these things to get closer to Allah. And this first one, and this first naqid is where they worship the thing itself. That's the difference in these two. Any other questions? Okay. If there's any questions, the sisters, they can type them. In the meantime, my brothers can begin reading.
Al-Awl, shirk.
لا اعلم.
What? Oh, I didn't read that. Al-Awl.
اعلم أن من أعظم النواقض الإسلام 10.
Okay, well, you know.
That's from the beginning.
Okay.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
I'lam, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay. I'lam anna min ahfami Nawaqid-ul-Islam ashara. Nawaqid al-awwal. الشرك في عبادة الله تعالى والدليل قوله تعالى إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء ومنه الثاب الذبح لغير الله كما يذبح للجن أو للكبر. نواقض الثاني من جعل بينه وبين الله وسائط يدعوهم ويسألهما الشفاعة ويتوكل عليهم كفر إجماع.
نعم يلا أبو طاهر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اعلم أن من أعظم نواقض الإسلام 10. الأول الشرك في عبادة الله تعالى، ودليل قوله تعالى إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن يشاء، ومنه الذبح لغير الله كما يذبح للجن أو للقبر. الثاني من جعل بينه وبين الله وسائط يدعوهم ويسألهم الشفاعة ويتوكل عليهم كفر إجماعا.
نعم يلا يا ياسين.
اعلم أن من أعظم نواقض الإسلام 10. الأول الشرك في عبادة الله تعالى، والدليل قوله تعالى إن الله لا يغفر أن يشرك به ويغفر ما دون ذلك لمن شاء. ومنه الذبح لغير الله كمن يذبح للجن أو للقبر. الثاني إن جعل بينه وبين الله وسائط يدعوهم ويسأله الشفاعة ويتوكل عليهم كفر إجماع.
نعم. جزاكم الله khairan. Sorry for going over a little bit, but I wanted to finish these two together. Hope everyone benefited, inshallah ta'ala. And we'll see you tomorrow. We'll continue with the Nawaqid al-Thalith, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. I didn't see anything written from the sisters, so I'm assuming they understood, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.